You think, well, did I see a craft and they're manipulating my cell phone? I even got somebody else to come out and they couldn't capture it on their cell phone. So it wasn't just me, it was somebody else doing it with their psychology, with their phone, under the same process. Same thing happens. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so was it a craft? Or was it really a ball of light? And what we saw, what it was manifesting was, in our mind's eye, is a craft. And I think to myself, well, why would it do that? Isn't that interesting that you might have a ball of light phenomenon, intelligent, but if it's in the field, the conscious field of being observed, because maybe phenomena knows when it's being observed. Maybe the electrons change in it when it's being observed, just like the double slit experiment. It's like anything can change its aspect. Even a pen, that pen knows when I'm looking at it, and it knows when I'm not. You know, if it can read the same thing, the measurements, it knows it's being consciously watched from given areas, and it projects this beautiful puppet show. Oh, well, it's a great craft, it looks wonderful and stuff, but really it isn't. It's a ball of light. Or it was, in fact, a ball of light, and the camera saw through the charade.
Welcome, everyone, to Cosmic Convergence, a show for experiencers by experiencers. Today, we're welcoming back world-renowned parapsychologist, Mr. Steve Mera. Developing his research methodology, Steve has proved that the scientific method can be applied vigorously to every aspect of the phenomenon and create results. Steve's investigations point towards a phenomenon that adapts, learns, and expresses itself across multiple domains, depending on the observer, the environment, and the level of belief involved. What makes Steve's perspective so disruptive is the implication behind it. If the phenomenon is unified, then everything we've been taught to treat as unrelated, such as abductions, apports, implants, hauntings, may actually be different expressions of the same intelligence interacting with us through different mechanisms. His research forces us to rethink not just what the phenomenon is, but why it behaves the way it does, why it hides, why it reveals, why it manipulates belief, and why it seems to operate with a strategic awareness of the investigators studying it. We're honored to have him back on the show to continue this conversation and push deeper into the implications of a phenomenon that could very well be manipulating, or even more concerning, creating our reality. Steve, welcome back to Cosmic Convergence.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Daniel, for having me back on the show. Yeah, it's good to see you guys.
Good to see you too. Good to see you too. And for the viewers, this is the first time I'm doing this, but I have to say that I have some information that's come to light just recently that I kind of want to reveal towards the end of this interview. So please stick with us. Of course, it's going to be another fascinating discussion with Steve. And I'll tell you what, it's just always an honor to have you on here, Steve. And thank you. I'm going to start off with my fiance, Melissa, and I have experienced several instances of light phenomena, flashes of light seemingly directly over our head with clear skies as far as the eye can see. We've experienced red orbs on several occasions. One such instance was just a block away from our house. That was wild. It just descended from the sky. Neither one of us had our phones. She was out going to go walk the dog, and she's like, Jonathan, come outside. Out of the kitchen door. I was like, last thing I thought it was, well, let me grab my phone. I just went out there and I saw it just descending, and I was like, okay, now I need to get my phone. So I went inside, right, grabbed my phone, and we could have discussions about what it shows or not, but that's besides the point. And by the time I got back into the carport, she's like, it just went into the trees and it was gone. But anyway, every instance has been without sound in the general area, no sound from the orbs, no sound from the flashes. And these reports aren't new for experiencers. They have them all the time. There seems to be this correlation with the phenomenon's utilization and manipulation of light, sound, and magnetics. Could you elaborate on these
Sure.
aspects?
Yeah, the first thing is that we've got to get out of our heads that these things are, they're non-intelligent. They're sentient. They absolutely are sentient, these light phenomena. It also is interactive, but it also connects with certain individuals. That's what we might refer to as a conscious connection, some type of tagging procedure that's done in a conscious way for certain people to have those experiences more than the average individual. It's usually brought on by their interest within the subject, because we know now through scientific studies that the larger the interest you have, the more likely you are to attract the phenomenon or experience the phenomenon firsthand. Um, it can also be induced phenomena from trauma as children, having problematic upbringings and stuff. People who've had trauma in their lives, considerable vexation, can also have this tag, this conscious connection with phenomenon. This is quite interesting. The light phenomena, well, the thing is, when it comes to, they come in various different colours, various different sizes, and sometimes not always round. Sometimes slightly, oblique, yeah, eclipsed slightly, more stretched at one end, sometimes collapsing within themselves. Sometimes they appear to manifest in certain ways where they manifest bloom. Others seem to demanifest the process to reverse a bloom, which is just literally collapses within itself. There's an interaction with phenomenon, we believe, as well, just by actually you looking at it. It is consciously aware that it's being observed. And that can even be at quite some distance. The light phenomenon itself, sometimes they can put out up to almost 10 gigawatts of power, which, there was one calculated by a nuclear physicist having an experience with his wife one particular night, and he ran his calculations, and this particular object was put about 9.5 megawatts, which is about a day's production of a nuclear power station. So we have to sort of say, how does it contain so much light? It also manipulates light in a physical manner, which doesn't fall in with normal physics of what we'd understand what light phenomena consists of. And that would mean that light can bend, can move round corners, it can end abruptly. The illumination, because there are two different things, like the object, its brightness, and what it casts down to the ground, again, does not always fall into the physics of understanding how light acts. You can have an enormous light, but very little illumination on the ground. It's not like you've got that same power as a bulb or some type of light source, normal light source, because we can calculate, just simple math, transpositional mathematics. You can work out a light source at a given height and how much illumination that light source should spread onto the ground when detecting light on the ground with light meters. So we know there's a calculation for that. It's physics. Of course, it defies physics, Communications, yes, they can communicate seemingly through numerous different methods of light phenomena. Sometimes people have received flashes of light back. Sometimes a beam of light is come back. Sometimes they mimic, if they're in reach of laser lights, if they are in reach, because a lot of people tend to use those things and they think that they're reaching these objects really high up. But then when you read the instructions, it goes for about 300 meters, a laser light, and they're likely more than 300 meters, some of these away. And yet you can't tell because you just see a light in the sky from your beam, and you think you're hitting it. But it's not that when they react. It's not because the beam of light's hitting them. It's because they know through conscious connection what you're trying to do. So sometimes they reply back by duplication of that light source. It could be green, blue, red beams. They can they can manipulate and duplicate. And that's a kind of a giveaway to us, because you say, oh, that's interesting, because our pen light laser is green and it came back green from it. There are those types of incidents. They seem to be also non-physical when they want to be able to pass through doors, windows, into the ground. They can materialize and dematerialize at any given time that they want. There's been cases where things have manifested outside of the ball of light phenomena, because the ball of light phenomena is not just in the UAP topic, it's in the paranormal topic. It's also in the cryptid topic. You know, it seems to be the predecessor in a lot of these different types of subjects of manifestation. So we know that these things are associated to in paranormal cases where they've intelligently gone down corridors and turned corridors, gone through open doors, being picked up on camera as they traverse. Um, Sometimes they manifest things out of them, you know, dead relatives, for example, relatives that have deceased, passed away, communications, things like that. Sometimes things which aren't so pleasant, such as non human intelligence, and that interacts with certain individuals. Light phenomena is associated around a lot of structured UAP crafts in the sky, and associated with paranormal manifestations, Bigfoot encounters. People often report seeing balls of light in the vicinity. Some have even said, you know, Bigfoot is actually turned into a ball of light and shot off at high speed. You know, there are lots of strange things, but it seems to be we overlook the ball of light phenomenon. You know, and I've experienced it myself many times, even outside the bedroom window. And then it went off into the tree opposite the road and then just collapsed itself to nothingness. You know, but they seem to be watching and interacting. So it's very fundamentally a large point or part of all various different topics, the ball of light. Measuring them, they can generate, you can use rangefinders on balls of light. If they're manifesting in key location for a period of time, you can put the long range finders on these and work out, oh, well, you know, they're about 3,000 meters out there. And they tend to be in that, they seem to reoccur in given areas. So if you've seen it one night, you just, there's some chance you might see it in the same location the next night, or even more than one. They've seemed to duplicate, morph, separate. They seem to pretty much anything, really. You know, I mean, you can see whole armadas of these things sometimes, or just a singular one. But what's interesting is that when they sometimes, you know, when you initially start doing the range finding on these objects, and the last 3 or 4 days they're out at the same location, out at sea, and you can see them, and you're getting about a ping back about 3,200 meters, and you think, okay, so that's where they are. And then suddenly, the next night, you can see they're exactly in the same place. And then all your rangefinders start saying 40 or 50 feet away. Because what they tend to do is produce what we believe is a magnetic field, which is developed around them so much that it changes the rangefinder's capabilities. The rangefinder hits the magnetic field before hitting them, and it's a countermeasure on their behalf. You know, they do want to be elusive. They don't want to give it all away. And sometimes they like to do things like that. And it just throws all the problems out when we come to try and working, you know, when we're working out statistics and, you know, how far these weigh. And then all of a sudden something like that happens. It's been done on purpose on many occasions. So it is a real interesting phenomenon, but I think it's probably one of the most common of aerial phenomenon listed throughout the whole world and since ancient times.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating, just like reading experience or witness reports. Like they're driving down the road, it's at night, and their headlight beams will kind of go off. They're bent. It's bent by magnetics.
Hmm.
And I was watching one of your other interviews, and that's where I kind of came up with this line of questioning, to where if people can't understand how, and I'm no scientist, understand how light is bent by magnetism, we got to look at the sun and how do we see stars that are behind the sun, with the sun being
Yeah,
so bright because of that. That's Einstein right there. So light bends and curves due to magnetic fields, right? So
it
like black
is.
holes, etc.
You're right. You're right, John. But the thing is, the sun, you're dealing with tremendous amounts of gravity to bend that light. So what is it producing? a light source, this is where the physics just goes straight out the window again. Because we've got this little rule book of this is how it's supposed to work within our reality. And sometimes it demonstrates it doesn't. And typically, when car headlights are bending, you would expect the whole car to be pulled towards the object, if there's that much gravitation. Because
Right.
gravity, well, light waves can't escape gravity. We know that. But the tremendous amount of gravity must be pulling light. You'd think it'd attract all sorts of things. Your metal
Oh yeah.
wristbands and watches should fly off your wrist.
Spoons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But that's not the case.
That doesn't happen.
So, but we do believe it's magnetics, and we've done some tests ourselves. And I had a physicist I was talking with, and he just blatantly said, "No, you can't bend light with magnetics. It's impossible unless it's the
Mm.
sun." And I said, "Well, I can show you a little demonstration." So basically, I'll tell people how to do this. It's very simple. You get hold of a ferrocell. A ferrocell it's a bit like the glass on a light of an old bike. Yeah, bicycle.
Okay.
The old bicycle lights. You had this little.
Yes.
They're quite big. The lights. They had this glass in it, and it's
Uh-huh.
concaved. It's a
Yes.
ferrocell. So what you do is you get that ferrocell, and you get a laser light, like a normal pen light. Doesn't really matter. And if you put it and fire it at the ferrocell being concave will scatter the light to the rim.
Mm.
So that green laser light is going to hit the center, and all you're going to see is the rim of it all light up because
Wow.
it's scattered the light source to the rim. And all you've got to do is put next to it is a powerful, small magnet,
Mm.
and you will record the light being pulled towards the magnet. I've got recording of it, of the experiment. So, of course, I showed the physicist this, and he went very quiet and left the meeting. So, at the end of the day, I don't mind because they live within this realm of this block of understanding that they've been taught. I'm not expecting them to learn outside that block,
Right.
because you don't get taught that. But then suddenly you think to yourself, well, actually, you were wrong. You can bend light with magnetics. And you know what? If you can bend light with magnetics that easily, then maybe there's a method of doing it with car headlights because they just seem to think, oh, it must be so big, the gravity well, that it'd pull any metal for half a mile. That's not true. The problem is that we've got a lot of people that just sort of want to put forward their ideas, and they usually are physicists. But then, you know what? At the end of the day, the data's the data, and you can prove it and show it through experiments. Even long range targeting with lasers, you can see it bend the whole laser come off target because there's a gravitational well between you and the target. And that's because this phenomenon's been present there. Usually you have to get there between 24, 48, 72 hours at the most for it to still exist because it collapses.
Right.
You know, Einstein was right. Two things in space and time don't seem to mix well together. You have to have one has to give. And a hole, if something manifests into our location and then suddenly disappears, there's a hole. I mean, there's things in there initially, gravity, light waves, dust, oxygen, nitrogen, all sorts of different things, electrical waves, magnetics, even forms of radiation and frequencies. They're all in this. The thing is, when this collapses, when it disappears, it leaves a void, which creates
Mm-hmm.
a gravity well. But over a period of time, it's going to shrink. So you've
Yeah.
got to be able to get there and detect and do your specialized equipment in that location, do your experiments at the time before full collapse.
Mm-hmm.
If you can, you'll also take readings of unusual time displacements, latencies. You've got time displacement meter, DT meters, and you can measure latencies between the equipment and the probe, which means that the environment you're in and the environment it's in, the probe, are acting completely different for a duration of time. And it's short lived, but you can catch that data if you're fast enough. And we've managed to do that several times. But it is strange how this phenomenon operates, and it operates outside our understanding or taught physics, which many people get. That's the only thing that we have, isn't it, to offer?
Yeah, and you touched on so many things on that explanation that I had further on for questioning. So I'd like to get back on those. But I
Yeah, yeah.
remember I was watching one of your videos, and I believe you were talking with Nathaniel, and we're talking about apports, which is one of the things I do want to talk about. But it was also the EMF reader being able to pick up the well, that gravity well, right? Because you
It's
had
just
something at the end
smaller.
of the
That's
bed.
all it is. It's a
Yeah,
miniature version. Yeah.
yeah. And so my our closets in the bedroom, in particular, we have one closet where the light will just come on its own and it'll go away, and
Yeah.
then we have another one which has the bangs. So we were both in the kitchen, bang, 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 real loud in the bedroom. Like something fall, open it up, and that's just where we keep our dirty laundry. Well, people keep their dirty laundry in plenty of places, but that's where we keep ours, right?
Okay.
So, and there was nothing going on. I was like, okay, this is weird. But because I watched that video, I went, hey, you know what? We've got an EMF reader. We picked it up. Let me go ahead, and I did all around the area of that
Mm.
closet door, and the frame
Yep.
was hit really hard, and there was no wiring around or any kind of electrical other devices that were in that vicinity where it was pinging so hard. And so over the few hours, I would check back and I would see it slowly start to degrade until
Diminished.
I, it
Is it?
diminished. It's gone within 24
Well, it
hours.
can't be
It was
wiring
gone.
then because it'd be there all the time, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
If you're getting a
correct.
natural EMF from the electrical wiring. You
Mhm.
do. It's just a smaller version. This is what people don't quite understand is that in paranormal cases, which people think, all these strange disturbances, we have what is referred to on a miniature scale is an electron diffusion region, a micro electron diffusion region. And that's responsible for the manifestation point or the entry point, incursion entrance point, whatever you want to refer these things to, for the location. And it's also the same thing for, going out. Some people call them doorways, some people call them many little portals or whatever you can call. I mean, I don't like the name portals. Everybody keeps ribbing me about that. But, the electric, electron diffusion regions on a geological base. Hemispheric versions, different sizes. On a larger scale, you've got the UAP phenomena utilizing it. On a micro scale, you've got paranormal phenomena utilizing it. So it does range. I mean, it could be the size of a pinhead, but it can still give the output for disturbance. And this is what we found. And of course, just like what you said, we go in with our EMF meters and we think, oh, we're picking up ghost activity. Well, you're not. It doesn't pick up ghost activity. There's no EMF meter I'm aware of that does that. It'd be wonderful if it did. But what it does is it picks up environmental disturbances for an incident to happen. If an item has to move, there's a disturbance in that environment which is measurable. You're not measuring a ghost, you're measuring the disturbance in the environment. It's the same thing, for objects to move or for certain noises, to something banging physically on something, those disturbances leave a trace, but they diminish quickly, just as I mentioned about the UAP ones. They diminish quick as well. But you can read them, but over a period of time, I think, small item moving like the size of a packet of cigarettes, for an example, is a small little, um, it was a vibration detector to move literally 1.5 foot off the bed frame onto the floor. And that was only because the bed frame was being reported to be moving. So this is designed to pick up, detect any disturbance, such as, little shaking. It's a vibration detector. It does go into alert mode in a locked off room. We go in there and find that it's not just gone off, it's actually on the floor. And it's about maybe 18 inches away from its resting place, which is an improbability for it to happen unless the bed moved. If the bed moved, there were two detectors there. The top detector was on the actual bed, and the one was on the bed frame. For it to do that, for it to knock the one onto the floor, you definitely have a registration on the second vibration unit on top of the bed. That didn't happen. So we do know that vibration detector was targeted for movement, only 18 inches, but it left a circular pattern about this big of EMF around it. And as time went on over 3 hours, it was getting smaller and smaller and smaller until it went. Very high sensitive vibration detectors, which I'm going to replace one just here and one on the bed frame as well, because of reported vibrations. I'm going to leave them as they are, as you can see, and I'm going to shut the door and I'll seal it off. Okay. As you can see, two sensitive detectors there for vibration, one on the bed and one on the bed frame. It was the item that was on the bed frame which had relocated itself whilst in a locked off room, sealed, and it was that area that was adversely affected by EMF. The location of the incident was high in EMF for a duration of just 2 hours and 46 minutes approximately, and then collapsed. You can see in this next image that the item was discovered on the floor, and you can see the distance of how far that item had moved from its resting place. The affected area was very acute to where the action of the incident took place. In other words, leaves a residue behind. The action leaves a residue behind, which obviously emits EMF for a short period of time, which was monitored approximately every 10 to 15 minutes. So I think the smaller ones don't last as long. The larger ones last longer. Like can get up to 3 days sometimes. Some of these, the larger ones, but some of them, micro ones, literally can be an hour. Sometimes less, depending on the size of the disturbance area. But it's the same thing, just in two different case scenarios.
Have you noticed when you've had those encounters? I would say more so on the UFO side. If you gotten to a site where it was within that time scale where you could kind of feel anything there, like physically, or was it more so going off with the readers themselves? Yeah.
Well, sometimes, in the vicinity of manifestation, you can sense an ozone sometimes,
Mm.
an electrical. It's like the burnt. It's a funny smell, ozone. It's like burnt air in a sense of speaking. It has an odd smell. Um, in that location, sometimes we smell sulfur in those locations, which could be a byproduct of the phenomenon's manifestation and demanifestation process that was there. But we do rely heavily because, we have to rule out psychological conditions. What I think it smells like this, and what you might smell, I smell, might be two different things because, our senses of smell is different in certain people. Even frequencies can cause you to smell certain scent. There's experiments in that. So we try not to fall too much heavily on the human psyche or psychological experience of it because they vary so much. But specialized equipment that shouldn't vary. So it is rather there or it isn't, and you'll get a measurement. So it's always good to if you've got both, brilliant. But I've witnessed both. In environments for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I was asking because there was a personal encounter that we had had with a friend locally, and they had seen a craft, had an encounter, and we went out to investigate because they called us frantically. We went out, and it was, and I think back to it, I'm like, was it just because we were hyped up, or? But it felt like there was something in the air, like you could feel there was something else.
Like a static charge.
Yeah, something. And then when we went back to the site where she had this circle of shadows encircle her, and there was a being behind her and this craft, and um, we went to that exact spot. We were getting the recording of her, and then after we got the recording, we saw this praying mantis flying between all of us, and that was a little indicator in my own life of a synchronicity. So it's very strange,
Yep.
but yeah, I was just curious of the physical aspect. But I wish we had recorders that night. I kick myself every time.
Well, some people have had recorders and they still haven't functioned for them, or because you've got to allow the phenomena can manipulate any piece of equipment that we can create on
Right.
planet Earth. There is nothing that they can't manipulate. It's called transplacement phenomena. I can tell you a little bit more about that a little bit later. It's quite interesting how the physics that they can do is incredible. But at the same time, they can manipulate reality. They manipulate your perceptions. So it's really hard to pin things down sometimes, or what we actually experience. And of course, it does vary depending on different people. I've had 3 people together and can't even agree what they've seen. It's just that's absurdity for you. But that's just the way the phenomena deals with. It delivers it. But it is interesting, because, like I say, there's something referred to as cognitive limitation, and the phenomenon can cause that to happen. So it doesn't matter how good you are. You might have a camera in your hand, you might have one round your neck, but you won't think to use it until afterward the event. And why does that happen to be reported so many times? Is because the phenomena didn't want it photographing. In other words, it took control of the mechanism in your brain, was a cognitive action, to take the photograph, and it created a limit to it. So it's a cognitive limitation. It means basically that you won't act out the way you should act out until afterwards, and you think afterwards, damn it, I should have done that. How annoying is that when that happens? Don't get me wrong. There are people, can take photographs. No, sometimes they're not a problem, but occasionally they won't allow it. And they won't even, sometimes they don't even appear until you put your cameras away, in certain locations. So it just goes to show that they are consciously aware. You can't trick this phenomenon. You think I'll go and hide a secret camera out there somewhere, and record me at a distance. No, because you know it, they know it.
Yep.
If you've got that thought, they've got that thought. They know exactly. So it's very, very difficult to trick them, for sure. Sometimes they'll allow you to get things, and sometimes you think afterwards, blimey, what happened?
Yeah, we've had friends that are experiencers that have had interactions that are like they'll see the lights and be like, all right, well I'm gonna try to get a photo, and as soon as that happens, they're gone. Or later they'll be like, hey, they'll have that
Yeah,
interaction being like,
yeah.
is this okay to record? And then they'll be allowed, but you definitely can't pull a
You
fast one on
can't
them. That's for
guarantee
sure.
it. No, you can't guarantee it, Daniel. And the thing is that I've had a whole teams of people, which are the whole point of the experiment is to go and take the photographs, visual evidence. And then something happens, and there's 3 of them together. They've all got cameras. Not one of them takes a photograph. I said, "That what we're here for tonight? You are here for this, aren't you? Tonight, this is what your job is." And they're like, "Steve, we didn't even think. We didn't even. It's as if it wasn't even in my hand. I was too locked on." I said, "Well, you're not too locked on. What you don't realize is that something's come out and grabbed you, and this is what's happening. There's this handshake between you and the phenomena, and you're focused on this, the handshake, and not your external thing that's in your hand, like your camera, until after the event. It's just one of those things."
And then you have instances where you had, Steve, to where you saw something outside of your house and you filmed it, but it was nothing that appeared like you seeing visually in your eyes, right?
Well, sometimes I am. I've taken many photographs and videos, and so many of them, because it's so regular. And they tend to appear as I see them. And then one particular night, a lovely structured craft came flying over very slowly. It was, you know what? It's so many bright lights on it. It's like, hey, look at me. Because, if you want to be covert, just switch the lights off. Hey, guys,
Right.
So this phenomenon seeks to be seen. That's what it wants. And it flew over, and it was diamond shaped, but it was longer at the front and shorter at the back. And it was a diamond shape, and it had orange and red lights on it, and it was slowly flying over the house. Not a sound, nothing. No wing appendages, no engines, nothing. It was clearly something unusual. Of course, I go out to film it, and you can imagine my frustration. I'm looking at it, and I can see a craft, because this is pretty low. It's not far away. It's pretty low. And it's right over the house, and I'm filming it, and I'm looking at the camera, and and I'm looking at the object, and I'm thinking to myself, they're not the same. I'm getting a
Yeah.
ball of light, an orange fiery ball of light on my camera, and I'm seeing a craft. That is nothing Normal. Are you seeing red and orange there, yeah?
Yep.
Are you seeing any shape to it? I know you can't see it on the camera, but it's moving very, very slow. Is it triangular?
I don't know.
It looks a bit triangular, doesn't it? You can't see it on the camera.
I can see it on my camera. It looks like it does look like diamond shape,
It's diamond shaped, yeah.
but not on the camera.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not know what it is.
Aye, aye. Why is it? Why? Where's it gone?
Go.
So which one's right, guys? This is the problem. Well, the answer is they might not. Neither might be. How's that for blowing your mind? Because you think, well, did I see a craft and they're manipulating my cell phone? I even got somebody else to come out and they couldn't capture it on their cell phone. So it wasn't just me; it was somebody else doing it with their psychology, with their phone, under the same process. Same thing happens. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so was it a craft? Or was it really a ball of light? And what we saw, what it was manifesting was, in our mind's eye, is a craft. And I think to myself, well, why would it do that? Isn't that interesting that you might have a ball of light phenomenon, intelligent, but if it's in the field, the conscious field of being observed, because maybe phenomena knows when it's being observed. Maybe the electrons change in it when it's being observed, just like the double slit experiment. It's like
Right.
anything can change its aspect. Even a pen, that pen knows when I'm looking at it, and it knows when I'm not. If it can read the same thing, the measurements, it knows it's being consciously watched from given areas, and it projects this beautiful puppet show. Oh, well, it's a great craft. It looks wonderful and stuff, but really it isn't. It's a ball of light. Or it was, in fact, a ball of light, and the camera saw through the charade. One of the two. It could be that. But then somebody came along one day, as they do, like Nathaniel does, and says, you know what, Steve? Maybe neither of them. Was it even there in the first place? Could it just been all manipulation? Well, I think, well, yeah, it could be. We can't.
Right.
How do we know? you
How do
know,
you gauge?
if
Yeah.
you just doubt the fact that you're recording or doubt the fact that you might be seeing something as it should be, you've got to throw both out the window. It leaves you with nothing. So
Mhm.
really, was it nothing generated by the phenomenon? And we made it to a ball of light on this and whatever it was. It is very, very confusing because the eye is not the camera, and they can manipulate cameras in any devices, and they can also manipulate the mind. So it's a bit of a toss up between the two as to work out what's the conclusive thing I actually captured. One thing I
Right.
can only say is that it was a shared experience, which was interesting because
Mhm.
people have reported to me that, and I've never experienced it. And that was about October last year. That was.
I know that you and Nathaniel have had discussions about, like, let's say a visage. We'll just say Bigfoot. And I'm not going to say the lady for Bledsoe or anything. Let's say
Oh, the
Bigfoot,
divine feminine, yeah,
the divine feminine, right? Which
or Dana
is
in Egypt, in Ireland, same thing.
mhm, mhm.
She has many
ISIS,
names.
ISIS, whatever. But
Yeah.
about how there's always seems to be the reports of orbs of light around and around like Bigfoot or a UFO or something like that, and those might actually be projecting the image, the visage, the mask that we're seeing, and that it might not be like, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling on this. It might not be actually the object that we're seeing, but a projection from these balls of light, depending on what our belief system is or what we expect to
Well,
see.
people think of projection as in it's an image it's projected onto a
Right.
flat screen. That's what most people think when you think about what's a projection. It's light waves hitting
Mhm.
a solid item,
Mhm.
generated usually through us by technology. You know, that's what people initially think what projection is. But what if projection had 3D physicality to it? Then it becomes what you might refer to as a physiological construct.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I'll try and step you through this, see if you
Okay.
grab this. So let's take for next. There are a number of different experiments. Let's take the Philip experiment, Ontario, 1977, I think it was, in Canada. The Philip experiment was designed to make a ghost. Can we create a ghost? The scientists that are involved in this, parapsychologists and psychologists, took a bit of time, but they were successful. They concluded they were successful. They ended up they manufactured a ghost, how he looked, how he acted, how he talked, his whole lifestyle, and everything, the whole history about this thing, and eventually, through the belief and the constant of practicing this experiment, it birthed it. You know, they were able to create an interactive phenomenon, which they believe was the ghost. The ghost of, because they're doing this in a, not an environment where there's any disturbances. It's done under very strict conditions, and they managed to do it. But they stopped there. Now, if you take the experiments in regarding SEP, which is our establishment, the scientific establishment of parapsychology, from 2006 to 2015, we took it. There's three steps. They took it the first step: intelligence created interaction. And intelligence interacts. The second stage, if you carry on, because they stopped there, they'd achieved their goal. They concluded we'd managed to do this and prove scientifically, they believed, that we can create these things. And we did a social experiment many years ago, and we took people into a building filled with prior knowledge and expectation. And it was a building that had no phenomenon taking place. And we kept taking them back until that building became haunted. Phenomena was taking place in the building because of the consistency of people going in there and believing it was haunted. So yes, we have a direct impact in our environment. Now, the phenomenon is a real phenomenon. It's not an extension of ourselves. You can remove us. The phenomenon remains because it's been captured electronically. But they concluded at that stage one and finished. We've done our job. We proved that we can create a ghost. Stage two is you create from invocation to incarnation. You incarnate it. In other words, the ghost becomes a physiological construct. Like looking at you, looking at me, it can pick up your cup in your environment. It can interact with that environment. The third stage is when it interacts with you in a certain physical manner. That's stage three. That's the physical construct interacting with you. That can be done. That's stage three. We reached all stage three in the SEP experiments. Philip experiment stopped at stage one. That applies to various different phenomena. Now, in witchcraft days and stuff, they'll call it tulpa and stuff like that. When it's certainly given, it's got its own intelligence. It does what its own thing, and it breaks away from the experimenters and becomes a real thing. Yeah, we can't say living, but it's a real intelligence, and it's independently acting on its own. It's a source that independently reacts on its own. That is when we realize that we have a part to play in a lot of these experiences. So it gets very, very interesting.
That's a deep well. that's
Isn't
that's a
it?
really deep well. Yeah. Wow. Wow. So it's just a last thing I want to, I guess, do as far as um, recording, imaging, such like that, is the this what I've been hearing about lately, the possibility of quantum imaging, revealing how the phenomena, I don't know, interacts with our reality, how it can have the appearance. I know that we briefly spoke about this pre-show. It's very new concept to me. I know that there's still stuff out about it that's being developed. So could you maybe go into a little bit of that for us, if you don't mind?
Well, fundamentally, quantum imaging had no interest. It wasn't designed to look into the world of the the strange and profound. It's designed to look into many different aspects that we want information from, or should we say, three-letter departments want information on in regarding technologies. It also analyzes through quantum imaging the process of ignition of rockets, the how bombs, react in that environment. And you can, through quantum imaging, you can tell certain things from its construction, how to better them, because you don't have to necessarily have the payload to get the result. And this is kind of, it starts getting very dark and mysterious, start getting into that sort of thing. But quantum imaging can be used for that. And that's why there's a lot of three-letter departments interested in the aspects of quantum imaging. However, if you want to start applying it to other things, then if you see an object in the sky and you apply quantum imaging to it, it also reveals the possible effect in the environment around the object to quite a degree, which you don't see, you wouldn't detect. You won't see it with infrared or ultraviolet or anything like that. It has to be quantum imaging to see that. And then you start to realize that, well, okay, maybe there's certain technologies that are being used by certain UAP, which gives clues away as to what they're doing, how they're physically interacting in our environment. That's through quantum imaging. It can be applied to fluid dynamic research, magnetic research, all sorts of different, top stuff. But through the process of analysis of imagery, there are different methods of quantum imaging where the best way to describe it is, if you're looking at your monitor now, your monitor screen, between your eyes and the monitor screen are hundreds of layers of glass. Okay? We're looking through it. And this is the way our perception is. It doesn't matter where we stand, we always see the image. However, quantum imaging doesn't work like that. Quantum imaging looks at the layers. And some of these layers have got different things on. In between you and the screen image that your eyes won't detect, but the quantum imaging picks it out. There's a predecessor that was discovered to every single image except for taking an image electronically from your screen, from, say, paint on your computer, just a black rectangle, and delivering that for quantum analysis, because there is zero on it. So we know that there's a difference between the physical world and electronic data, and the predecessor is shown. If I underwater, we got underwater photography. We're running tests on that. Actually, we're just in conversations day before yesterday about, space photographs, which we have underwater. These are my parameters. I said, look, I want these parameters. Let's have a nice country scene. Let's have it underwater. Let's have it in space. I want to see these images under every condition: zero gravity, zero air, all sorts of different things. But there's always a predecessor. The predecessor you don't see, but every single camera in the world when it takes a photograph, takes the data is there in quantum. Quantum data is in a photograph. No matter what photograph you take, it's there. Now, we don't access that, but it's there in the data, and even the cameras themselves aren't even designed to look at that data. It's designed to ignore the data and just look at what the amounts of light coming in, the pixelations, whatever, even if it's video. Now, the thing is, if you take a running video or a photograph and you put it through a quantum analysis and you look at the different stages, the predecessor, this is where it became pretty strange. Through the various layers, you eventually come to one particular layer, and there are faces everywhere. And they are faces. This is not pareidolia. This is not a trick of light. It reacts to fluid dynamic research. It's interactive with the environment. They're there. and they are a predecessor to everything. So no matter what I'm taking a photograph of, it's between the camera lens and anything. It's there. It's the first thing. Now, here's the best example I've got. When NASA went to the moon, the Apollo program, and we're taking photographs on the moon, when you look at some of those photographs, they've got crosshairs on.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the crosshairs are already on the film.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and they're designed to line up so that there's no squiffs or there's no going out of range and stuff. So it basically makes sure that it brings all anything, if it's got any blurredness, whatever, it brings it all into the right dynamics. But it's on the film before the photo. This is what it's like. This is the predecessor to everything, are these faces. Now, apart from faces, you also get objects. You also get constructs. You also get light phenomena, geometric constructs. In fact, some analysis was done in regarding good friend of mine, Trey Hudson, who does an incredible work regarding the Meadow Project. He's over in the US. And some of the analysis we've done for him in regard a cube, which is it's a quantum cube, which appears during their investigation in the location where they're investigating. It's high strangeness location, by the way, the Meadow Project. It's a bit like Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay.
But you can clearly see it. It's very defined. But it's, you don't know it's there, but it's there and it's a construct. So what is it? We also have certain intelligences which seem to be captured within the quantum realm as well. So we're trying to deal with this. That the biggest question is what are they? And we can't. Look, there's a load of scientists, and they can't. They can't. All they can say is that these things are there, and they seemingly are real, but they're everywhere,
Wow.
and we don't know that they're there. Now, as to why is the only heads and no bodies, we don't know. What does it mean? Is it consciousness? Is it us? Is it, but it seemed to be everywhere. Even the photographs of space, deep space, they're there. They're everywhere. So there's no shaking that, no matter. Now, we just got to the point where it doesn't matter what video, even this video now of us doing this recording, it will be there. I have tried everything and it keeps coming back. So we know that it's there. And now there are a few 3-letter departments very interested in the thing that's there because it ties into something called the E8 lattice. And this is originally we were a bit concerned because even the word is monitored by certain 3-letter departments in case we are talking about things that they don't want us to talk about. But the E8 lattice, there was a very good documentary that's put out on YouTube if you actually just Google E8 lattice, and it will tell you about how we perceive the world, and that there's this construct. It's called the E8 lattice. This phenomenon is interacting with the E8 lattice. We are moving into a stage now that specialized equipment is being manufactured to lift the veil a little bit as to what is around us. But it's like anything. Once you took that lid off it, you can't put it back on. You can't unsee these things, and I struggled with it for a bit. But now, obviously, dealing with the team for so long, the application source has been used for UAP. It can confirm authentic UAP footage. Doesn't matter what you do, the quantum imaging will just cut right through everything. It doesn't matter how much you try and manipulate a video, it will cut right through it all and see at the quantum level if it's authentic, which is coming very handy, as you can imagine, because now we can look at UAP footage and say, has it been messed about with? Is it doctored? And we can tell you straight away, by its, by the images that in the quantum imaging, it leaves the quantum fluid dynamics. It leaves a trace mark of authenticity because we've seen it around real UAPs. Footage that I've sent over, and you can see it there. It's pretty crazy stuff, guys.
It is.
But that's the way the world is going now. They are working on stuff around the clock. I've been in communications. I'm in communications every day with them, and it's so much work. These specialized reports having to be made, for peer review and all sorts of different things. But it's going to be released soon to the world in regarding how and what the process is. And it's just been delivered to in a certain way because it can be a bit heavy for
Yeah.
people to understand. So it's got to be done. It's got to be told in the right way. But it's. I have no explanation for it. It's absolutely fascinating.
Well, Steve, just open up my skull, open up my cranium, and just take a powered blender and just go
I would like that
because
myself.
that just blows me away. Because I try my very hardest. I try my very hardest to not associate one of my own experiences with things that I hear, like we were talking about the faces. And it's just like two things come to mind that probably are not related at all, but with the phenomena and existence in general, hell if I know, excuse the French. But one of the first things is through a spirit box session when we were talking and a voice came over, which I do have recorded, that says, "The eyes are around you."
Mm-hmm.
And then second off is, remember when they had the Google Dream? Remember Google Dream, where every image that it came up with was eyeballs and faces. No matter they try to render a pig, it was eyeballs and faces that made this pig.
Yeah.
And that is like, and that's when the big debate about AI was: is it conscious? Is it becoming conscious? And then you have this possibility of quantum imaging picking up these consciousness that are watching us, that are interacting with us, that are creating this reality that we're experiencing. And it's just, again, just my whole brain.
I know. I mean, when this dropped on my desk, I had to just go for the throat and say, right, prove to me the ADs exist, and I
Right.
just went at them constantly, at them every day. Right, I need to see this. I need you to do this. No, you don't use that. You use my video. No, you use these particular photographs because I know the conditions of the photograph and the videos. You can't be doctored. I can tell by the metadata and the parameters if it has. I mean, you only got to add a tiny little speck of one little red paint dot on my photograph and the data will change, because that's one great big thing about it. I mean, this is why we ended up having as far as I'm aware, the most photographs are ever taken in a haunted building over a 24-hour period in the world, with specialized technology that we had, which would take literally 10 photographs every second. It's going right, and it's just electronic. But what it does, no way you're going to look through millions of photographs in a whole night in a haunted location. Forget it. But what the data does, the software is designed to look at it. Take that first photograph and looks at the data, because the second photograph should be exactly the same data if that environment is no different, and same for the third and the fourth. And then you suddenly go, oh, hang on a sec, there's a big spike here in the data. And that is when you end up with something in the camera shot. It's data at the end of the day, and there's a lot of better process of doing that. So if they were messed about with any of my stuff, I knew that all I had to do is go back and check my data and see if there's any variation whatsoever. And it wasn't. So they hadn't manipulated anything, really. And it was, I had them for a long time until I had to bow out. I had to say, well, okay, I mean, I'm very rigorous, but it is what it is at the end of the day. I have no explanation for what these faces are, but they seem to be intelligent. They seem to be everywhere, as well as the light phenomenon, these constructs and other things. It's a very busy place around us, and we would never, we're not designed to know. We're not designed to see it and experience it.
It makes one wonder when they see their cat spazzing on the floor, assuming to go after something that you can't see. I mean, I'm just saying, just trying to be funny about it, but I mean, really. And so, I mean, this is just mind-blowing information. And I don't know why I'm even going to interview you about anything else, because I'm just kidding. Because that's just like, what? Sorry, Daniel, take.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
You're asking me to take that. My brain's mush right now.
Do it. I know some people see these things and they get a bit
Yeah.
scared, and they think, "Oh my God, what is all this around us?"
Yeah.
And
Mm.
but it's not necessary. I think it's all down to your
No.
belief system at the end of the
Yeah.
day. What you want to believe that they are.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of the faces are distorted and strange. Sometimes they look like cartoon characters. It's weird. It's just, but they are what they are. I don't know why faces. I just do not know. It's strange and crazy. But do you know what? I've come to accept that we do live in a strange and crazy world, so not much surprises me anymore.
No, and you know what I mean? I'm still breathing. I'm still here. I'm still okay. So, we
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about about the debunking of the jellyfish UAP, and I'm not going to get into that. But I remember a lot of people were like, "Oh, these things are flying over my head." Oh, and it was just panic. And I was thinking to myself, "Okay, well, if they are, I'm still here. So, I mean, what can I do about it if they are at this moment in time? I just
Well,
need
it
to
could
continue
be.
to live my
Yeah.
life." But I just need to continue to live my life and not be in fear, of
Yeah, and you
there's always
can't.
faces around me. I
You
mean,
know, you can't. You can just live your life.
just live your
If
life.
if we see peep behind a curtain, I just accept the fact that I was lucky to be able to one day peep behind the curtain. I'm not going to
Mhm.
let it change my life. My life is,
No.
if I'm permitted to only experience so much in my life through visual and whatever, then fine.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to. But maybe at some point we do. I mean, even regarding the people thinking these jellyfish UFOs, and they're thinking about jellyfish UFOs
Mhm.
is that they are being picked up and filmed
Mhm.
in Skywatcher program.
Yeah.
Um, the problem that they have is that sometimes what they're seeing is not what they're filming. They've already admitted that, which coincides with what I was just saying a little bit earlier about taking a photograph or video on your cell phone
Mhm.
and not seeing something completely different than what's being recorded. They are faced with the same parameter problems that we do as researchers, and they've got to go through that. But quantum imaging can be applied to those images. You see,
Yes.
there's a
Hmm.
lot of different things that can be used for now,
Yeah.
including machinery and all sorts, so many different things, because now we realize this technology exists and we can utilize it. There's 1,001 things. So there's a lot of big people out there that want to tap the source and say, look, what do you think it could do for this? Do you think it
Mhm.
could be applied? The application could be applied to this? And yes, I think most of the times they can, even looking for certain minerals underground,
Yeah.
which it has been done recently,
Mhm.
and it's quite surprising what it can do. Very clever.
Take all that iron, and so we can go ahead and keep ourselves safe from the phenomena, right?
Iron, iron, silver, gold,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, lithium, all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
It's a surprise through the layers what the analysis can show.
Wow.
Yeah, and you mentioned
Thanks.
apports, you didn't you as well? If you
Yes.
want to get on to apports,
Yeah. I was going to say that like it's some of the most intriguing topics I think within the overall phenomenon, aside from what you just told me. I'm sorry. Often regulated to paranormal spirit manifestation as a subject of apports. So, could you
yeah.
provide some examples of apports from like the most basic to probably the most extreme that you've come across, Steve?
Well, the word
Sorry.
starts to change, and you want to get into the extreme stuff. But what about biolocation? How's about that?
Yeah, let's do
How
that.
about with physical biolocation? It's happened. I'm aware of at least 4 cases of physical biolocation, including one in the Meadow Project, including one in advanced skull experiments, where people have been bilocated physically. So, but it changes the name, but it really is an apport. It's a biological apport. It's no different than having a plant manifest. Really, it's a biological item, isn't it? Or your pet hamster. I mean, suddenly when it's a person, we want to give it a different name. Oh, it's biolocation. Well, it's an apported person. Then how's about that? And they don't like to think of that. But is there any difference in that individual? Because apports, when you analyze apports, they do show signatures which are unusual, which shouldn't be found in the original item.
Mhm.
So what's happening with people, if that's the case? And it's rare, but it could be happening more than we think, you know. we have to take into consideration the strange disappearances, 411, missing 411, and all sorts of different things. We got to look now. People are just seem to disappear like that on a penny. You know, they're right next to you. There's no time for them to wander away. You know, and you look around, so they're right there, and next flick of a finger, they're gone. You know, so, and they're very confused, and they don't talk about their experiences if they return, if they're lucky enough to return. But it is interesting that these people have changed somehow. So I don't know exactly what's going on, because you can't, you know, I'm not have access to people who, you know, let me run 1,000 tests on them, because it's all about, you know, health and safety and regulations and health authorities and all sorts of breathing down your neck. But when it comes to items, I believe the apport phenomena is a quantum anchor, acts as a quantum anchor to deliver phenomena to the location. When you have an apport and you recognize an apport's taking place, you need to remove it from your location. Now, what's interesting through the experiments when you're starting to deal with poltergeist infestations, because I worked in that area for a long time in what is referred to as paranormal mechanics, and poltergeist infestations are at the top of the list there. When we removed the apports from the location, there was a sudden and an abrupt stop to the phenomenon for 2 or 3 days, sometimes 4 days. You know, and especially when, I mean, it's recognized by the people living there straight away, because they're saying, look, we have 8-10 incidents a day. And then next minute, I take the apport away and I'm getting a phone call saying, have you got rid of it? What have you done? So I haven't done anything. What do you mean? Well, it's been three days. We've had nothing. But it does correct itself over a period of time. Now, what's interesting is that when we took the apport, it's what I refer to as being hot. And I don't mean in temperature-wise. Hot apports are active around them. So you can relocate the apport and the phenomenon tracks the apported phenomenon. But it does for a very, very short period of time. But then it seems to dissipate, and then it reevaluates itself back, reestablishes itself, back in the home where it originally was. So we were trying to conceive the fact. We're only actually, it was only brought up in a think tank on last Friday. This conversation, and I said to these, you know, very academic people, I said, look, just conceive this idea for once. What if poltergeist phenomenon is multitasking, and it's doing it, let's say, delivering all strange things to different homes? It's not in your house. It's not in your home. The phenomenon is what it delivers to that location, and it's managed. And this is why you get, you know, why do people have apports of Spanish coins? Well, in Spain, are they getting British coins or American coins? Is it going like this? Swapping them around from one location to another. Think about that for a second. You know, so, well, I'm going to get to the real facts in a minute. We're bloody man. So we realised very quickly by removing the apports, phenomena temporarily subsides. So it's like it's in some sort of confusion. It's not being delivered to the location where it should be. It's now being delivered where the apport's been taken. And it reverts back. Somehow it kind of realizes, catches up. But in that time of catching up, they've got quiet. They've got peace. Now, that's happened many times. So we're onto a mechanism here. Now, we already had certain items analysed, showing a diathermic alteration in it. It was so drastically, it couldn't even be matched against an identical item. There was a lady in Yorkshire, family actually, and the pet budgie had died, and he wanted a little urn. Yeah, because they wanted to keep it. Little Joey, you know, wanted it in an urn. And it was only a tiny little urn. So this urn turns up, like, and they've got this urn, and the budgie's been sent off to be done, you know, so it'll get returned as a little box of ashes or whatever, which they plan to put in this urn. The urn is placed on the fireplace shelf, sort of thing. Gone. Now, they were having poltergeist disturbances, but that's gone, and they can't find it. So they're looking around, and suddenly they find it in a completely back bedroom, in a completely different location. And what the hell? It wasn't there yesterday because we searched the house, and now it's back. There it is. We got it back. Thank you for bringing it back. And that was okay. That's fine. But a few years later, they knock the wall down. They're doing some work in the house and decide to knock this wall down. This wall's never been down in the house. They knock it down. And in the wall is the urn. The urn, we assume, was the apported object that vanished. But now, the question is if that's the urn, there's two of them. How can you have two of them? You only have one of them. And when you analyze and look at these things, they are absolutely identical. There's no difference in them whatsoever. Now, the problem is that if items are being duplicated and put in your environment so that phenomena knows where to deliver the phenomena to, all it's got to do is, I'll put something in that environment. I know where it is because it belongs to me, not you. It's mine. And I deliver it to that. Therefore, you'll receive the phenomenon. And it's doing this in multitasking process possible. Very possible. And you think to yourself, okay, so you move the apport, it causes confusion temporarily, but it sets back in eventually. This mechanism at play, you end up with two items. Well, surely they shouldn't have two. Is it a duplicate? It's a duplication. There are people that are literally run away from poltergeist phenomenon. It follows them. Why? How? What's it following? What's it tagging? One woman went across the whole to the other side of the world to live. And she got there, opened up the house where we moved in, and it was there waiting for her. It was basically, she was there for about 2 days, and it was there. So how do we know that the apport phenomena isn't the glasses she's wearing, isn't the ring on her finger, isn't the earring in her ear, isn't the filling in her teeth? Anything, it can tag itself to the individual. Doesn't matter where you are then, does it? No matter in the world, you take your phenomena with you, you know? And just for people, let me show you, just for people that are going to ask.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Two. One's the apport, one's in the wall.
Wow.
The original one in the wall. Yeah. It took me a while to get them off, huh? Convincing. But this isn't the first. There are many other cases like this, but it doesn't get told, doesn't get heard. You open up the wall and you think, flipping at children's toys, kids' shoes, all sorts of different things. It's the most resourceful phenomenon in the world. It doesn't have to. It wants to save energy. This is why in poltergeist infestations, when you got water formings, the water forming disappears before the next act takes place. It's utilization. The whole point of phenomena is, being a parasitic, is to generate vexation and stress. So it's not going to waste its time moving something in the kitchen. If you go in there and you think, did I move that? I may have moved it myself. It won't do that. It's going to do something so drastic that you go, oh my God, it's got to be paranormal. Stress and vexate from. And it utilizes for the next act. So you are being recycled. It's known as starving the phenomenon recyclization of parasitic phenomena. And you realize there's a mechanism. If you can get people to react differently in environments regarding stress incursion, then it will reduce phenomena. And once that we realize they can reduce phenomena, then you can actually get rid of poltergeist phenomena. We've done it on a number of occasions. It's known as starving the phenomena process. But it's all down to how strong you are in mind about taking control over your environment and not vexating so much. What is good is at some point they realize that, oh, well, the more I'm stressed out, the more phenomena takes place. He's right. And once they do that, it's like positive reinforcement. They kind of go, oh, right. And they do, and it does diminish, and it can get rid of it. Not many people manage to get a grasp and understanding and a hold, control on poltergeist infestations. But that's pretty much how it works, is these types of infestations. But yes, items have been found, but you don't get them documented very often. And nobody really wants to analyse apports these days because of the price it's incurred. It's thousands of pounds. Well, nobody's just got a couple of £1,000 lying around just to go and get, I don't know, a mug analysed or a toy dog or whatever, an ornament. But it happens. We've got 2 cats as well, pot cats. He was thrown out during an argument with a husband. There were phenomena taking place. The vexation cycle was very high. They were arguing between themselves, man and wife. He picked up one of her collectible cats, threw it outside into the backyard, cracked on the concrete flags, and shattered into parts. They carried on with this argument for another 10, 15 minutes, and then it cooled down. And then he suddenly realised the pot cat is back on the shelf in the living room with this collection where he grabbed it from, and goes outside. It's not there. You know, I've got these items. I don't keep them in the house, of course, because they're hot for a while. Until phenomenon returns to the house, and then they're not. It's as if a transference takes place. But there's a real interesting mechanics going on here. There's a mechanics going on in poltergeist phenomena, and that's what paranormal mechanics consist of. Just one of these studies in regarding the items and the movement of items. What people didn't realise sometimes is that an item that you saw, where was it? It was over there. And where did you find it? It was over there. Measure it. Because other items sometimes take place of movement in the house and they're the same measurements. Why is it 43 inches that? Why is that 43 inches? Why is that 43 inches? You know, it's weird. There's a mechanism at play. You know, if you get into paranormal mechanics, it's very, very interesting about what you actually learn about a mechanism and how to confuse the mechanism. It doesn't like it, but it's just the way we can mess with it a little bit.
That's fascinating. And then you have like objects ending up in people. There was something, like a little kid had a Lego stuck in his, and
That was a very unusual case from Lancashire, and there's a young boy, and they were having poltergeist disturbances. He was thought to be the catalyst, because sometimes you do get catalysts, but it's not written in stone. The Society of Psychological Research would have the will believe, which is probably the greatest establishment on the planet in regarding such phenomenon. The studies, it's very old and still going today, but they'd have us believe that it's written in stone that, you know, remove the catalyst, remove the phenomenon. Well, sometimes you don't even need the catalyst to have poltergeist disturbances. Sometimes there's no child involved. How does that fit the bill? You know, but they don't want you to think, they don't want you to look at it. They just want you to look at the cases where there's a young girl. It's usually a girl more than a boy, usually going through adolescence. You usually got poor living conditions or family issues. There's some vexation in involved already, pre-vexation, where the phenomenon is attracted to, and it's like a moth to a light bulb in some cases. But this young boy was being pelted by things going around his room, his toys and Lego bricks of all things. A bit like the Enfield case, where a Lego brick actually jumped out from the floor and hit a reporter on the head. Police officers saw Lego bricks moving, but in this case, he ended up with a pain on his leg, and he looked, and he was a little bit of a red mark. And the mother said, well, did a Lego brick hit you on the leg? Because sometimes they fire across like a flipping bullet sometimes, but they usually don't normally hit the individuals, very rarely. I'd say 99% they don't hit, because they don't want to scare you away from the environment, because, you know, you're its food, in a sense, vexation cycle. So, but he had a little red mark. He said, no, I didn't get hit by a Lego brick, but I see them, he's been flying around. There had been a couple of times when, a Lego brick had hit him and one on his arm, and he went into his mum and dad's room crying, a little red mark. But it was annoying, and he tried to move him around from different rooms in the home, and it didn't work, and it was just real problematic. But this persistence of pain kept going on his leg, to the point where, and the little red mark hadn't disappeared a week later, and he's still in pain. So they took him to the doctors, and the doctor says, well, you're going to have to, I'd like you to go to the hospital, a bit concerned. Well, I'm not sure what the red mark is. Have you been hit by anything? Have you prodded it or banged it or anything? No. Took him to the hospital, and he went in for a scan on his leg. And lo and behold, we'd suddenly discovered what the red mark was on his skin. The red mark on his skin was from infection, and it was brought on by a Lego piece in his leg. Actually, in his leg, a very small Lego piece. He had to have minor surgery to have a small leg, and he did have a scar then. But what was interesting, there was no scar on his leg. There was some redness because of the infection, but there was no scarring on the leg.
Good point.
So the item could not just been a projectile, a poltergeist projectile. It would never bury itself into someone's inside the leg without it actually going, it'd be some outside interference on the skin. It must have apported into his leg. Now that's interesting because you start getting into alien implants and you think, well, how do they get into the skin? Because we don't see no scars. So are we dealing with apport phenomena here as well? In both cases. Now it is interesting. He had to have a minor operation. He took the little. I actually got it. I actually got it in a bag. The Lego piece because I asked for all these things. Don't keep them in the house, and then until they become cold. In other words, there's no activity around them, and then they come in. But yeah, it must have been apported. There was no physical way, and they were absolutely confounded, the doctors. They had no idea. How does a small Lego piece without an entry point get into the leg? And they couldn't even believe it was. They had to run analysis on, and you can see it's a Lego piece. Because when you have Lego and even on the tiniest print
Yes.
on Lego, it says Lego. It's stamped in it. Lego. It says it. And so, well, it's clearly a Lego piece. Well, we just want to analyze it just in case. It's a Lego piece. It says Lego on it. I mean, come on, guys. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, though, they're just doing their job because I think they were just so confounded as to how the hell did a less tiniest Lego piece get into a boy's leg without any entry point. They couldn't. So he had to have minor opposition to remove it. And eventually they were giving it back and they had it in a bag and they didn't want it. It was creepy for them. So I said, I'm quite happy to take that off your hands. But
Yeah.
strange things like this happen, but you don't. And I'm sure there are other cases like this which are happening out there in the world and we just don't get to hear about them.
And that's a really good point about alien implants because that's one of the biggest things. Well, there's no entry point. How did it get there? What's the explanation? You didn't step on anything, did you? No, but it Whitley Strieber, it moves.
Mhm.
It does its thing, but
I've actually
it's
felt
there.
that, I felt
Yes.
it, Whitney's behind the ear. I've actually put my finger on it. Whitney went, give us your finger. Flip it neck.
better than better than pull my finger,
Yeah. It was funny, but he's like that. He said, "Girl, just put your hand finger there, Steve." But yeah, it was all good fun. But yeah, it's no entry points, and you have to question how do they get in. Well, we certainly may have an answer regarding poltergeist disturbances because it might be that same answer as in how did a Lego piece get in there, get inside a boy's body in his leg with no entry point. It can only be an apport, I'd assume.
Right.
And I know that there's cases with manifestation of items through experiments. The advanced skull experiment there was flowers, roses that were being dropped onto the seance table from above, but at the close down, some of them were still stuck in the ceiling. They were half in the ceiling still, and they were still alive, but half of them hadn't fully manifested out. So some of them are still stuck in the ceiling, so they were partially phased into a bit like that horror story when they first brought out about the DE-173 Eldridge, from the Philadelphia experiment, and the crewmen phased with the ship, a bit like that, a bit horrific, but this is exactly what it was. Things were half phased into the wall. Now, whether even some furniture, and the fact is that these items, when you go into in the wall a little bit, you think to yourself, well, was the wall not there at the time? And the object interacted, or was the chair not real, or these things weren't real at the time? Well, I don't know. Or it's left purposely as a demonstration that they can manipulate our reality. That's for sure. That does happen.
And parts of the skull experiment where they go to grab I think it's a vase, and it's
No, well,
the hand
that
goes
was a
right through it.
glass. It
I'm
was a
sorry.
glass in the skull experiment, but it was a vase in the Lawrence Livermore laboratory experiments. Exactly the same thing, though. It's a physical item that we have in our environment, and the phenomena decided to demonstrate by making it non-physical, but you wouldn't know because you can fire light at it, and it bounces the light, it casts shadow, and the only thing is when you put your hand through the damn thing, you can't pick it up, and you're like a bit confused as to what the hell, I can see it, it's real. You're like, oh, it's there. but I can't pick it up until they want you to, and it become physical again. So it's a demonstration. They are demonstrating to us. This is NHI, by the way, are doing this. It's not Spirit, it's NHI. Because that's what they were control programs, experiments to do. The Livermore Lab 1 and Skull to reach NHI level. And they both did very successfully. And they demonstrated the same thing for them as they did for them in regarding, look what we can do. We can manipulate your very own reality. And that's pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, Steve, have you heard of any? We were talking about the kind of copying and pasting of objects and replication. Have you come across any cases or experiences with yourself of the phenomenon of being almost able to copy and paste a experience that happens later, but you don't realize until in the present?
Just give me an example, so I just understand you fully before I answer this.
Well, it's okay.
Even if it's a fictitious one, just
okay.
give me.
For example, well, I don't know. John, can I tell the story of what happened to you and Melissa? Or do you want to go ahead and tell Steve? Okay. John and Melissa had an experience where they were doing the spirit box. They heard, and they had heard sounded like Melissa's voice over the radio. And then a few months later, was it, John, that you heard her say that exact same thing in the kitchen?
I'll tell it. I'll tell it. Okay. So we're on the spirit box and we're drinking coffee because we were trying to have an extended session. And so we're having our coffee and I'm asking questions and we're listening for answers. And this voice, clear as day, Steve, clear as day, as if it is the entity is right next to me, says over the spirit box, drink it.
Drink it.
In a female voice. And we're like, okay, Phenomena realizes we're drinking coffee. And I'm like, yeah, I'll play along. Sure, I'm going to drink it because I'm going to drink it anyway, regardless. Thought it was really weird. Have it recorded. It's like a voice right there. So months later, she got some kind of drink that I've never had before. Melissa did. And I pulled it out of the refrigerator and I was like, I don't know. And she's like, drink it. And I went, wait a minute. You said it just like, it wasn't like in her head. It just like that she was thinking of repeating the way it sounded over the spirit box. But it was like it took that clip, I'll say clip roughly, okay, and played it in the past so I could hear it in the future. Just very bizarre. But that voice was hers, and it was right over the spirit, or an imitation of hers, right over the spirit box. But it wasn't your typical EVP and typical radio transmission. It was clear as day. And I think that's what Daniel's referring to.
Right, I'm with you. So you're talking about experiencing the sound of what sounds like your partner, and of a future event that you recognize took place.
Correct.
So, right, and that at that point in time in the future, I bet it was within 9 months. About the year.
It was about 3-4 months.
There you go. Has to be. Usually, they always tend to do things like that within a period of time, and it's usually within 9 months. Don't ask me why. I don't know. But
I like the number.
Yeah, maybe. But it's maybe because it goes on longer that you wouldn't recognize it. If it went to 2 years, you might have not recognized point A and point B come together. So, but I'm not actually. Do you know what? That's a good one. I'm not actually experienced that. To be honest with you, in this 42 years, I never experienced that. I have been told about future events and where we'll be, where and when on that day. It's incredible. I don't know how they managed to do that. I don't think they're changing anything. I think they just look ahead in time. They just be able to. I don't think time exists for them in some way. I think past, present, future is considered, and they can see a lot into the future, and they can let you know. It's like me saying to you, John, today, 9 months to the day today, you will be in South Africa on holiday, and you'll probably sit there and think, nah, why would I go to South Africa? What's the chances of me going to South Africa on some type of safari or outing or holiday or whatever? And then suddenly you start to realize by 4, 5, 6, 7 months in, there's a pattern of events that's coming about that seems to point to you going to Africa. And you think, no, it's just by chance. Yeah. And then something else next step in, and then something else does. And before you know it, you can't, you're holding your head thinking at, at the actual airport, thinking, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. They knew. And you think to yourself, well, they must have known. I don't think they change it, but I think they can view it and they can tell us the cheat codes, because this has happened a few times to me. And by the third time, I'm doing everything the opposite. And go out my gate and I turn left instead of normally turning right. I just want to rub him up the wrong way. I want to make sure that they mess up. And, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because they're not looking at what I did on the way there. If I turn left, right, or whatever, they're only looking at the end event. And the end event is the end event. I can't change it, And I think, well, okay, so they're seeing, it's not about free will. It's about, seeing the future because you've made those free will decisions to get there. So it's not like taking your free will away, but I've had those experiences a few times when they've demonstrated that they have a knowledge of future events. It's very specific future events of where we are and what we're doing, even if that's how it was for me. I'm thinking, no way, why would I be there? I'm not going there. I've got nothing. And then a sequence of events takes place. And now, are they in charge of the sequence of events? I don't think so. I think they can do in some ways, because there are people that have been traveling down the road, seen this object and frightened and turned around and the next minute they're still going towards the object. I thought you turned around, turn around now, and they turn around and they look, they're going in the same direction. It's like frustration, can't get out of it. There are incidents like that where they manipulate the whole reality and understanding of things. But I don't think they are doing all that for 9 months. I think they're just looking ahead and saying, I'm sure they can do. I've heard cases where they've frozen people. Literally, they're stuck. You're looking around and everyone's in heart, just frozen whilst you have your experience. There's always been cases of that, or even you taking out the environment, like odds factor. You're on a shopping on a busy street. You've got your wife and your child. You see this gigantic triangular object in the sky. You're hooked on this. You're looking at it. You're all mesmerized by the damn thing. And you suddenly realize it's gone very quiet. You look around. There's no cars. There's no people. The shops are still there. Everything else in the world is the same, but no people, no cars. The Oz Factor experience is very well documented. Take you out into reality, and I think they just drop you into the nearest one to it, where everything looks the same but ain't the same. So, yes, it's a tricky one. I've never had that experience, John, but
I'll share the audio
it's
clip with you
interesting.
if you'd like. If you'd like, I
Yeah,
can
that's
share that
really
with you.
interesting. That's something that I will document moving forward. I'm always hearing new stuff. I've not come across that, but that's a good one. That's a good demonstration for you to recognize point A and point B. Maybe that if it'd gone on longer, you wouldn't have made the connection because you may have forgot the one that
Right.
you got. It's trying to understand what EVP is. I mean, you should have no meaning in EVP. You shouldn't be able to ask a question and gain a response. That's not EVP.
Correct.
People think that is,
No,
you
it's not.
actually, it's instrumental transcommunication. It's transcommunication that you're having. If you're interacting in a way, such as please give me your name or please tell me where you're from, and you get a verbal response back, which you can clearly hear, then that's not EVP. EVP is electronic voice phenomenon. It's randomized.
Correct.
It's like, we get them all the time, a woman screaming out, "Oh, I've seen a lovely dress." I'm thinking, look, what the hell has that got to do with us?
Right.
This has nothing to do with us, is it, really? We've had where we put flowers in vases and we put a, recording device next to it, and we got two women, and one says, who got those flowers? And the other voice says, that man got them. So you get some cracking ones, so we just file those away. But the ones that we think, I know what it is, but I'll just dump him, because like I say, there's many of them. When we were in Seattle, we were trying to film the documentary whilst we were there in doing the actual investigation at the time. Most people wouldn't do that, would actually do the documentary at the time of the investigation and make the documentary afterwards. But no, we were naive enough to do that. And the biggest problem we had is that we had too much invading the video documentary. In other words, it just kept coming in whilst we're doing the filming. And there's only us there, and we can hear this stuff and think, God, I'm going to shoot it again, because they're not going to believe it if we don't. You don't want all
Right.
this all the way through the footage. It's too much.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to take 3 turns at trying to get on one scene, just coming through the front door and looking around and saying, okay, so where did we start? That's all I had to do in the documentary. 3rd shot, because I'd messed it up or whatever, or they weren't happy with the lighting or something, a voice comes in and says, on 3. A female voice. There's no females in the environment. I got a task cam. I don't know if you know what a task cam is, but it's a recording device. Put it upstairs on the landing shelf, and I'm there. There's only us 2, and there's this guy on the actual recorder on the video camera, because he's filming, or he's filming, and I'm filming me putting the task cam and putting it on record. But it's not on the recorder; it's on the camera. And you think, well, how can it be? It can't be harmonic then, because it'd be on there as well. So it's non-harmonic when it's being caught, and it's a voice says, "It's a camera. It's a camera." I said, "It's not a camera. It's a task cam." But he didn't know what they were. He think it was referring to that. But the thing is, we got too much, so we ended up trying to redo it without. Please be quiet, guys.
Right. Right.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's true, because we got to the point where if we put too much of this in, because it was crazy, the house in Seattle, if we put too much of this in, people won't accept it. They'll think straight away, "Oh, I'm not having that. I've been a ghost hunter for 15 years and that's never happened to me." Well, it can, but I don't know. I'm with a catalyst. I'm with somebody who's a well-known catalyst. When he walks into a location, it's supercharged. It's like goes on steroids, a paranormal phenomena, and interacts in his vicinity. And that's great for me, because I can take him and it's suddenly supercharged. The location, which was pretty mild, seems to come out, so... But you've got to be very careful at what people think at the end of the day, So we had to cut it right back. And if people want to watch that, they can do. It's on the Supernatural Files YouTube channel. And it's called The Demons in Seattle Uncovered.
This is great, because I still have like a list of questions to ask you the next time we get together.
Do you know what? I'm always happy to come back on, guys, because sometimes my explanations are a bit long-winded, but I like to take you through it so our listeners and viewers have got a bit of an understanding about the small steps you have to take to get to conclusion, really. You can see the pattern of how things unfold. And like you, John, and probably yourself, Daniel, when you study this long enough, you will start to see the mechanism. You'll start to realize that the mechanism, and you're in the play. You're in the car with it. You're involved in this. And I keep trying to tell people about this, that you're much as responsible in long-term encounters as the phenomena is. There's a cohabitee, conduit, whatever, conscious connection. They just don't realize it, and but they do. I mean, eventually they will do, because they realize, well, why is it not happened to some people and others they never have anything, and others do have a lot? I don't know. That's the magic question. I don't know if it's down to DNA, your belief structure. I know phenomena likes people that are believers and people which are experiencers. It doesn't like scientists. It doesn't like skeptics. So what's that tell you? It tells you that it likes people to have a belief system in support of phenomena. And why is that? Why does it matter to them, whatever it is? Could be because of manipulation, or even more easily manipulated. It could be, who really knows? But it is interesting. We are trying to figure things out. But like I say, you could spend God knows how many lifetimes in this subject and still be learning, But slowly and surely, we are tapping away at it. Little bits keep flying off of interest, So, but
That's great.
I'm always happy to come back on if you have more questions.
Well, thank you. Now I know I started at the beginning of the interview. I said that I had some information that I wanted to go ahead and divulge, and
Mm.
this is
Yeah.
very extremely important to me. But someone had informed me a short while ago that somebody's birthday is coming up, and that would be Steve Mera's. So I
Oh
wanted to
no.
say happy birthday,
Happy
Steve.
birthday, Steve.
I wish
All
I
right.
could give you this cupcake, but unfortunately, I can't manifest it over to you in the UK. So
Thank you.
I'll eat it for you.
Hey,
Nathaniel
phenomenal.
Gillis
If you're
knew that I was
listening,
going to do this. Yeah.
can you port
I
this
told
over
Nate.
there?
I told Nate that
Brilliant.
I would do this for you, and he said, "Do it, buddy." So happy birthday,
Well,
Steve.
thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes, February the 22nd,
Okay.
222. Talk about numbers. But yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, I'm not getting any younger. I'm going grayer quicker. I mean, I put videos out. I mean, because I've been at this for so long now, it's 42 years. I've had long blonde hair, I've had brown hair, but slowly but surely it's going grayer and grayer. And the
Yeah.
fact is that, you're only as young as you feel at the end of the day. I still have as much passion about the phenomenon. There are some things I can't physically do anymore because, I'm not a young kid anymore, but I still put myself through it, tracking up hills and mountains, and I do put myself through it. So maybe I shouldn't sometimes. But I really did struggle in Spain last year up on the Pyrenees Mountains. I mean, flipping heck, it really real. That was that moment of realism. I'm no spring
Yeah.
chicken anymore. I mean, it doesn't help when it's 42 degrees as well. So, but yeah, I enjoy it. I can't see me ever thinking to give it up because phenomena is still part of my life.
Yeah.
That I experienced it since I was 7 years of age, but it didn't go away. A lot of people it does. Sometimes it disappears in the teens or in the 20s when the biological chemical changes in the body or they get interested in women or whatever. But no, it was still full on. I still have experiences, they are regular. So it hasn't let up. So whilst it's still involved with me, I'll probably be still involved with it for sure.
Absolutely.
But thanks, guys.
You're welcome. You're
Thanks
welcome.
for
Happy
doing
birthday, Steve, and thanks for joining us today. To the audience, Steve
that.
Mera official 2024
Steve Mera Fisher.
on YouTube. If you're not a subscriber, if you don't hype his videos, well, you got to hype this one. But if you don't hype his videos, you better get to it. All right. Or else I'm going to, I don't know, apport something over to your house. I'm just kidding. Anyway, thank you so much, Steve. Guys, like, share,
Thank
subscribe to
you.
both of us. And we'll see you next time on Cosmic Convergence. Take care. Bad Monkey.